Good morning. My name is Jill Friedrichs. I'm a board member with the Mount Prospect Historical Society. I'm here today with Bernice Oehlerking, a longtime resident of Mount Prospect. Bernice Oehlerking, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where were you born?
I was born in Mount Prospect on Railroad Avenue in a house, part of a farm.
How old are you, Bernice?
102 and 6 months.
So in August is your birthday.
Yes.
And we had a big celebration a couple of years ago.
Yes.
For the 100th birthday.
Yeah, which was my wonderful neighbors contributed to, or
all the neighbors got together and we had the party and we had your family over.
yeah.
And the mayor came over and did a little proclamation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were born at home. We did not have hospitals in Mount
No.
Prospect.
No.
And we were just talking. Bernice, where did you go to the doctor?
In Arlington Heights.
Okay, you went to Arlington Heights because we had, who was the first doctor that you knew? What was that gentleman's name?
In Mount Prospect?
Yes.
Dr. Wolfers.
Okay, but you didn't go to him. You went you had already established.
Well, that was after he came later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, after I was born.
Right, right. Now, how many kids are in your family?
Well, actually 6, and but mostly just 5 of us were living. My one brother died at 6 years old.
And where are you at in the order? Who's the oldest?
Where am I? What?
Who's your oldest sibling? Who was your oldest sibling? A boy or a girl?
A boy.
And what was his name?
Elmer.
And what year was he born? Or
1919.
Okay, so he was born in 1919, 2 years after the incorporation of Mount Prospect.
Oh.
Were you part of the founding members? Did your parents live in that house on Railroad when the village was incorporated?
That was my grandfather's farm on Rand Road, yes.
Your grandfather had a farm on Rand Road?
Yes.
Very interesting. Do you know where on Rand Road?
Well, near Central and Rand.
Okay.
A little east of that.
Okay, so in the Mount Prospect type of area.
Yeah.
And what did your father do for a living?
My father was a farmer.
Okay.
He grows corn and tomatoes and soybeans and other stuff.
Did the crops change every year?
Well, they did.
Okay.
And corn. Did I say you were?
Yep. So you had Elmer.
Yeah.
Okay, Elmer was the oldest. Then who was next?
Melvin.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then after Melvin,
Me.
you were the first girl?
Yeah.
Okay, and then who was after you? So
Howard.
that's 3.
Howard. Was
Okay.
Another boy.
Okay, and then
Virginia
okay.
and Dolores.
Okay, now who was the brother that passed away?
Melvin.
Melvin was the one that passed away at 6?
At 6.
Okay. And where is he buried?
What?
Where is he buried? Is he buried over at St. Paul Cemetery?
St. Paul Cemetery.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's somebody to look for. Is he with the Oehlerking family in the plot area?
Yeah.
At the cemetery?
We have, yeah.
Okay. So so Dolores is the youngest,
Yes.
and you're the number 3 child?
Yeah.
And it was very nice to have Dolores living with you.
Yes.
And getting you out.
At the end. And,
Yeah.
Well, and beginning and the end.
Mm-hmm. Right? So you lived on Railroad Avenue.
Yes.
For those that weren't around back then, what is Railroad Avenue now?
Prospect Avenue.
It's Prospect Avenue. And I've found out that it's not your home, it was your uncle's home that's still there. It's the bungalow that's been expanded. That's over by like George Street and Prospect Avenue. That was your uncle's farm or his home?
Yeah, Edward Street or what.
And where
Between
was
Edward and George, yeah.
Okay. And where was your home?
Lewis Street, near.
Close on Railroad Avenue.
Yeah.
Closer to Lewis.
Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many family members did your uncle have?
In the family?
Yeah,
that
him and
lived next to us?
Yes.
Well, there was Helen, Alfred, Edward, Herbert, Wilbert, Everett, and Beatrice.
So how many kids did they have in their family?
Well, did you count them?
I lost track. Was there like 7?
Yeah.
Say them again.
Helen,
Okay.
Alfred, Edward, Herbert, Wilbert, Everett, and Beatrice.
Okay, so there were 7, and that's including your aunt and uncle.
Oh, there was Helen, too. Did I say Helen?
You said Helen. Was that Aunt Helen?
Yeah.
I had an Aunt Helen as well.
Yeah.
And they lived in the bungalow that's still on Prospect Avenue.
Yeah.
So there was 7 people living in that house
Yeah.
back in before they put that big addition on. So you guys lived
Yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, to each other. How many were in your? Was it you and Dolores in your bedroom? Did you and Dolores share a bedroom at your house?
Well, my 3 sisters did. The 3 sisters.
Right,
did.
right. And who?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I don't know who was your other sister? Virginia.
Virginia, yeah.
And Virginia, you and Dolores all shared a room.
Yeah.
And kids these days each get their own room. Wouldn't that have been a
Yeah.
luxury back then? Right? Okay, so you were born on a farm. We find out that you were farmers. Where did your parents come from before they moved to Mount Prospect? Or were they always in Mount Prospect?
They always were in Mount Prospect.
Okay.
Well, my dad was born, or I don't know if he was born in Des Plaines, but he lived in Des Plaines. And my mother came from DeKalb.
Wow, that's a far distance back in the day.
Yeah, that was a day's journey.
It was, because I was kind of doing some research last night, and I did see that the Mercedes-Benz was developed in 1886, but you weren't too far after the invention of the automobile, so it took a while to get any place, correct?
Yeah. Well, I don't remember when my dad got his first car. I don't remember that at all.
Did you have any farming equipment, like motorized farming equipment, or was it all done by hand?
Well, they had horses, and then when the tractors came, they had tractors.
Okay. Very interesting. I know we talked before we started about when you moved off of Railroad or Prospect Avenue. And you've only lived in 2 houses in your life, is on Railroad Avenue and then your house on School Street.
Yeah.
And explain to me how you found that house or that property.
I don't. How?
With your parents, when they decided to sell, whose farm was it that you lived on? Was it yours or your father's or your uncle's, or was it still your grandfather's?
My father had a farm.
Okay. And when did he decide to get out of farming?
What did he do after?
Well, when he sold the property, and how did you get over to School Street? They picked out the property for you and built a house?
Yeah, I guess. I don't really know the real actual detail.
Okay. And that was in probably the early 50s, if it's the same age as our house, right?
Yeah, say 54, 55.
Yeah. So after your father did farming, what did he do afterwards? Did he do anything, or did he retire?
He was custodian at St. Paul Lutheran School for a while.
Okay.
And then they had that onion house in Mount Prospect where they sorted onions. Oh, and
the onion house?
Yeah, whatever they called it.
And that's, I don't know if we know it by anything else, the onion sheds.
Yeah, that's whatever
And
it
that was over by Bussy Flowers, wasn't it?
And that
by
was
their greenhouses?
No, it was over, what's next to Pine Street or something like that.
Okay. Pine and Willie?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Around that area.
Okay.
Because I don't know what's there now.
Yeah. Well, there's all condos there now by Pine and Willie. But so the onion sheds were real. You know, we see pictures of them.
Oh, yeah, they were real.
Yeah, so your dad worked there. Did your mom work outside of the house?
Well, that she helped with the onion at the onion house too.
Okay.
And no, she just worked on the farm too, and
So they worked together.
yeah.
So they were really together 24
yeah.
hours.
Well, I remember the buggy, kids in the buggy. When she'd go in out helping on the farm, they were at the end of the row, at the end of the patch of whatever was growing there.
Okay. So then this leads up to my question. So you went to St. Paul's School.
Yeah,
You didn't go to Central School, but Central School
No.
was up. They had
No.
one room
yeah.
with a teacher. How many rooms did St. Paul have?
Well, it started as a one-room school,
Okay.
and then then it kept growing.
And you remember 3 rooms or 3
And-
teachers.
3 teachers. But
Pastor
that
Mueller.
was after the one-room school. Yeah,
Right. They expanded
Yeah.
because it was a town that was growing.
Yeah.
You know, by 1917, we had to have 300 people in town
Yeah.
in order to be incorporated.
Oh.
So you went to a 3-room schoolhouse?
Yeah.
Okay, and Pastor Mueller was one of the teachers. Do you remember the other teachers' names?
Oh, there was Edna Taggy, Elmer Jockish, and Martin Haas.
Okay, so Taggy, Haas, and Janish, those 3 names?
Yeah.
So those are still names that are around St. Paul these days, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've got some relatives that are in the parish, in the congregation.
Yeah.
How long have you been a member at St. Paul?
All my life.
All 102 years.
Yes.
Right? You were
101 years.
yeah, you were
Plus-
baptized
Yes.
there, you went to school there.
Yeah.
How many kids were in a classroom? If you know, just an idea. You know, was it the 20 some? Or were there, you know, you started to say 15 kids?
Yeah.
Was that about it?
15 to 20.
Okay.
Maybe more.
Okay. And how did you learn, if you were learning, you know, at different ages, were you all learning the same thing at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
But you learned.
Yeah.
You learned how to read and write. You
Yeah.
were able to do all
Yeah.
that at the school. How did you get across the railroad tracks?
Walked.
You walked. It was 3 blocks to school.
3
Correct.
blocks, it was about 6 blocks or more.
Oh, okay. And you walked every day to school.
Yes.
There were no car rides. Did you ever take a horse
No.
and buggy to school?
No.
My next question was, you went to Arlington High School because Prospect wasn't around at that time. How did you get to Arlington High School?
Well, bus.
They bused at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. And you went to Arlington High School. Did you do all 4 years at Arlington?
We walked, walked to the bus station on Edward Street.
Okay.
I mean, where the bus picked us
Okay.
up. And
Yeah.
Edward and Northwest Highway.
Oh, so you had to go across the track, so it wasn't right at your corner
No.
like they do
not
now
right
with the
at
kids.
corner. No.
And you went to Arlington High School. What did you study there? Did you study anything special?
More secretarial work.
Okay. And you did 4 years of high school
Yeah.
and graduation?
Yeah.
And what kind of friends did you have in high school?
Friends?
Yeah, did you have friends in high school?
Oh, yeah. The same went to St. Paul.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question. They were closer to Mount Prospect than they were to Arlington Heights. You kind of stuck with all your friends from St. Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And do we have any names? Do you remember any of the kids that you went to St. Paul with?
Well, I went to, Paul Mosman, Margaret Knoll, Viola Niebuhr, Louise Bussey, and Richard Bussey, and Alfred Steer, Henry Menching.
So you've got there's a lot of names there that are old time Mount Prospect that we recognize from being around so long. So you went to Arlington High School, you went to St. Paul Grade School, and you went to church at St. Paul?
That's right.
And you were confirmed?
Confirmed at St. Paul.
How many buildings was St. Paul in? Are they on their second church? Is the one that's there now?
Yeah, I was sad when the first church went down.
Where was that at?
That was at Elm and Bussey Avenue.
Okay, so it wasn't even on the same property or in the same area. It was down a couple of streets.
It was the same area across the street.
Was it where the park is now?
Well,
Where was the church at before it was on?
On Elm and
Elm and Bussey. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they moved it.
That's Bussey Avenue.
Right.
And now it's on School and School and
Bussey.
Bussey.
Yeah. So they've rebuilt it once, because I did see yesterday at church for Easter they were celebrating the 111 years of St. Paul.
Yeah.
And they have a picture of the old church and then some cheerleaders and different things that go on with the school and basketball teams. But I saw that there was a previous church. I didn't know that.
Oh.
And then where was the school in the same building as the church?
No, the school was separate.
It was a separate building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was on Elm Street, I guess, or right in that area someplace.
Okay.
Oh, on Elm Street someplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they completely moved the properties when they were ready to rebuild and build bigger, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sure.
At St. Paul, let's start out with your parents. Were your parents involved in any of the social aspects of church?
Oh, yeah, my dad was a elder and usher, and my mother helped with the ladies' aid and whatever was going on.
So there's a picture that we have at the Historical Society that is of the Ladies' Aid Society. Maybe we should take a look and see if your mom is in there from them. What did you do at St. Paul? Did you do were there any activities for the kids, or was it just church? School?
No, I helped with the caring ministry, and I helped with, we had the Joy Club, I helped with that, and I greeted at one time, and
was this when you were a kid, or as you grew up into an adult?
Well, more as I was growing up.
Okay, because I couldn't imagine, what type of activities would you do after school? Did you have any clubs at Arlington?
No.
Or was it you came home?
No, we usually had to come home after school and help on the farm.
And what did you do on the farm?
Weeded and hoed corn and whatever.
It was very labor intensive because you were doing everything by hand?
Yeah.
And it helped that you had 5 siblings that all could help mom and dad. And once again, remember, this is on what is now Prospect Avenue, over by all of those apartment buildings.
Yeah.
That, and where we live was somebody's farm back until the 50s.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the after you graduated from high school, what did you do?
I worked downtown, and then I worked at the Buick place, or whatever the name. I can't remember it was called Buick, wasn't it?
Was it? I think it was. Was it Bussey Buick?
No, it was with the war. that.
Okay, I remember there was a Buick in Mount Prospect.
Yeah, there was a Buick.
Where was it at? Do you remember?
On Main Street.
On Main Street?
Yeah. Main and between Central and
Bussy. Back like where Sammy Scobles ended up going in. In that area, there was that Buick dealer. Right. And what did you do for them? For Buick?
Oh, made war parts.
Okay, so you actually, was this for World War?
Well, 1941.
Okay, so World War II.
School, yeah.
Okay, so you were helping make parts for cars? Or
well, no, for the war.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever. I don't remember.
Okay, but you were making parts for the war.
Yeah.
At the Buick business. And what kind of place did you work at downtown?
John Plain, and I forget where I work.
So you were a secretary?
No, office work. Yeah.
Okay. But you went downtown and you went on the train.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can tell us a story about a train on a trip you took.
Yeah.
What was that story of when you were on a trip? Where did it happen?
Oh.
You know what story I'm talking about?
Yeah, we were on vacation. I don't remember which one. And the train derailed, and we were on that car that derailed. And we had to be put on a different car before we could move again.
Okay. Now, were you still on Railroad Avenue when we had, what year did we have that derailment in Mount Prospect? Was that like 57, 58 that we had that derailment in town?
I don't remember the years.
Okay. Do you remember seeing that or being near it? Were you still living on Railroad Avenue? Or
no,
were you
well, it jammed up to all the traffic.
Okay.
They were using Prospect Avenue or whatever name of the street was then.
To get through. Because anytime there's problems on the railroad, Prospect Avenue and Northwest Highway become very popular, don't they?
Yeah.
We know that from being in our area.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's tell us about your working in Mount Prospect, because I think that's where a lot of people, at least people from my age that went to Prospect when I did, how we know you is from your jobs in Mount Prospect. What was your first job or your second job in Mount Prospect?
Oh, I worked at Mischke's for at least 35 years. And then when Mischke's...
Didn't they move out to Barrington?
And they moved right down the street. They were on Main Street, Mischke's, and they moved to the corner of Bussy and Main Street. And then after I left Mischke's, the bakery bought the building, and so they built people from the bakery asked if I wanted a job there, so I went over to the bakery to work, and everybody said, "How come you're here?" And I said, I went with the building, or came with the building.
Right, exactly, and that's what we jokingly say. Now, my sister worked with you at Mischke's. That was back before we had the likes of the AMP and the National. Those were just coming into Mount Prospect, correct? Mischke's was where you went. You know, after the general store, the next step up was Mischke's Meat Market.
Yeah.
And then we started getting the likes of AMP and the National. So you were at Mischke's, and that basically, everybody from Mount Prospect went there for their shopping, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Earl Mischke and his family that ran that.
Yeah.
And then, now did you Did you work for Central Continental anytime when they were on over by that Doretti's Plaza on Central and 83, Central and Main Street? Did you work for Central Continental when they were over there?
Yes.
You started out.
That's where I started.
You started out there, so you even precede the building.
Yeah.
So you started out there because then that was a very small place that they were at, and then they went over to where they're at now.
Yeah.
And have been there. And how long did you work at Central Continental?
I figured about 35 years also.
Okay, so the majority of your life was you never left Mount Prospect.
Yeah.
You worked and lived here.
Yeah.
What kind of people were there? Any type of people that you met that were celebrities, or anybody that would come into the meat market or Central Continental? Anybody that would stand out?
Well, Andy Pafko and Rick Russell family was in Mount Prospect.
Andy Pafko, didn't he live over by the golf course area? And then I know Rick Russell started out in Prospect Commons over on Algonquin. That used to be for all the athletes and air people, flight attendants and pilots all lived in that area. I remember that. That was in the 70s. What other groups as an adult were you involved with? Were you in part of any of Mount Prospect's? Outside of church, were you involved in the women's club or any of those organizations? Like the Women's Aid Society, was that through St. Paul?
Which one?
The Women's Aid Society, was that through St. Paul or was that through the village?
St. Paul.
Okay. Here's a good question. Were most of the organizations and the groups that took care of Mount Prospect, that did the volunteer work, was it more from those that were involved in church? Was it more based that those were the volunteers is where they came from? Versus, we didn't have a big village hall.
Yeah.
Did we have a village hall, back then?
I don't remember any village hall. There was someplace, but I don't remember where it was.
Well, the one that I remember is the ones that are on Emerson, the 2-story, that is now where those new condos are, where Canton Napoli is at. That was a village hall. A lot has changed in Mount Prospect, which we talked about that last week. We were talking about all the places that were gone.
Yeah.
Like Lynn's Hallmark.
Yeah.
And Yankee Doodle Dandy. Where did you get your hair done?
On Bussey Avenue, and William Bussey's wife owned the shop at one time.
Okay.
And I don't remember, they changed hands too a couple times.
Okay, because I know that, beauty shops were very important to the women in Mount Prospect, and there was the one that was on 83 that was next to the old chamber office that was there. Where did you shop? If you had to go clothes shopping, did you buy clothes or did you make clothes?
No, we went to
Mary Jane's?
Huh?
Did you go to Mary Jane's? Was that the name of it?
To Mary Jane's.
Yeah, that was the name. So did you stay?
McMahon's was here too.
Okay.
And there was another two shops. I don't remember the other. Was Lynn's? Was it?
Was Lynn's the Hallmark or was Lynn's clothing store? I don't remember. I know we had the Hallmark shop over by Yankee Doodle Dandy on Northwest Highway. How about what was the name? Haber. What was the material store in Arlington? Did you go to Arlington for shopping?
Yeah, sometimes. Arlington, Displays.
Okay.
And Irving Park. To what was the name of that Section.
Oh, the Harlem Irving Plaza?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you traveled all the way. Woodfield wasn't there.
No, Elmhurst was, and then, but I was one never for shopping either.
I getcha. Did we basically have to leave Mount Prospect to do, back when you were a young child, you did a lot of shopping and going to Des Plaines or Arlington
Yeah.
for different things?
Yeah.
We didn't have the convenience that we have now.
And Elmhurst we had shopped at,
And that was straight down Main
83,
Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when did your family get a car? Do you remember?
No, not the
Okay.
first car.
Okay, did you have a tractor before you had a car?
I don't know.
That would be interesting to,
At
know.
that time, I wasn't interested.
Yeah, right. What changes have been the biggest changes in Mount Prospect that you've seen over the years?
The condos and row houses and apartments, whatever you want to call them.
All the living that has come into Mount Prospect. What stores would you like to see come into Mount Prospect? If you were going to do something and you wanted a convenience, whether it be for yourself to go grocery shopping, is there anything?
I like small stores. I don't like to go into a big store. I don't know where anything to find anything, and I like to have cozy.
So all the shops that we had on Prospect Avenue back in the 50s, 60s, 70s
they
that
were
we
small
had.
shops.
Yeah, I do remember those. We were talking Mastercraft Cleaners that was on Prospect Avenue. I never realized the Games Plus, the one that's on Prospect Avenue and Pine Street, that's been there for 35 years. It's one of the older businesses in the downtown area. Where was your favorite place to go? Say in the 50s, 60s, where was your favorite place to go if you were going out with a group of your friends? What would you do? Say you were going out with a group of girls after you got done with Miski's and you were going out with friends. What would you do?
Well, we'd go out to eat most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, eating places.
Okay. Let's change subjects. What were you? I know you did a couple of sports, and I know your niece made some comment about one of your sports.
Yeah.
What sports did you do back when you could?
Baseball.
You could play baseball?
Yeah, we used to play baseball.
Oh, okay.
We had our own baseball team.
Between your two families, you had enough for a whole team.
Yeah.
You could do small teams and split the two families, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you had, and that brings up another question on, you had to be pretty good friends with your family.
Yeah, you knew your relatives.
And your best friend had to be Virginia and Dolores and your cousins next door.
Yeah.
It wasn't that you ran down the block to play with your friends.
Yeah.
You had your cousins next door and your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what other sports did you do as you got older? I know there's two other sports.
Well, I mostly started those sports after bowling after I started working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you on a league for bowling, or was it just a group of people going out?
Did I what?
Were you on a league for bowling, or did you go out just?
No, bowling. I belonged to several leagues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever shoot a 300?
No, that's everybody's dream.
Right. How about? Did you ever shoot a 200?
200. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were a good bowler.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was. I think I hit 200 once. What's your other sport? The one that you and I share.
Golf.
Golf.
Yeah.
And did you golf at the Mount Prospect Golf Club? Or where did you go to golf?
Well, more of the short courses, 9-hole, all around the area, Arlington, Rob Roy.
Rob Roy is that's a nice course. It's got a good couple, a good couple 3 holes.
Yeah.
3 holes.
Oh.
Par 3 holes. And then it's a shorter course. Yeah, because that Mount Prospect course now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
The greens are crazy.
Yeah.
So you were a golfer. Did you ever get a hole-in-one?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's wonderful. So you were athletic, and you were out all the time.
Oh, and we used to play volleyball too.
Where did you play volleyball at?
Different
gyms or fields?
Yeah.
Was
mostly I don't know where there were volleyball courts.
Okay. You know where I played was at the likes of St. Mark, St. Paul. A lot of the churches had the gyms that you could go and play volleyball there.
Yeah.
And that was, I know when I was growing up, I went to St. Mark, very important in our life.
Yeah.
And a lot of our things that we did was through the church. Was that the same with you?
Yeah.
That because your both families go to St. Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did your grandparents live?
In Des Plaines on Rand Road.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. At that Randon Central area?
And kind of right near the Mount Prospect. There's just Mount Prospect Road, and then it's Des Plaines.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What else have we talked about that you'd want to share with everybody?
Oh.
Living here for 100 years. Living here for 100 years. What else could you talk about?
When after I was working, then we started traveling. Sometimes with family, sometimes with most travel agents and stuff like that.
And what was I know some of the trips you took. Give me some of your highlight. What trips did you take that were amazing?
Well, we visited about 14 countries, and
okay, how
they
about
all were wonderful trips. I loved every one of them.
the farthest away was probably Australia and New Zealand?
New Zealand is very wonderful. Hong Kong was amazing. Germany was good. We went mostly New York, and we saw the
Oberammergau?
Yeah, we saw the play.
The Passion play at Oberammergau?
But we didn't see the play. It wasn't in the season that time.
Oh, but you did go to Oberammergau. Is a beautiful town.
Yeah.
With their painted buildings and everything. It is beautiful.
Yeah.
We did get the opportunity to see the Passion play, and it is, and then travel around Germany.
And we went to the Statue of Liberty. What was that? Was it 2000 when it was lit up?
Was that for Y2K, the turn of the century, 2000? They lit up the.
Yeah, we saw that.
Okay.
That was really a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go now. Since you bring that up, how about 1976, the year of the bicentennial? What did you do around the village? Do you remember what you did around the village?
No.
I remember one of the big things that we did with Lil Floros was we planted daffodils
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when, were you
Yeah.
part of that? I know we were all up and down Northwest Highway along the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
We put them by the Welcome to Mount Prospect
Yeah.
sign out in front of Village Hall.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things. And then did you participate in the Hands Across America?
Yeah.
When we all was that on Northwest Highway as well, that we all stood hand to hand
Yeah.
for the bicentennial?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you've lived through, the end of World War One, World War Two, Korea. Did you have any friends that served? Did your brothers serve?
My one brother was in service, but he just stayed in the States.
He stayed stateside.
Yeah.
Okay. But so you had one brother that served in the military.
Yeah.
Well, thank him for his service.
Yeah.
That was something that they were very proud to do back then.
Yeah.
What are other things that we miss that we talked about in the past? That we've talked about you and your history. And for everybody that would go into Central Continental, Bernice was there. She had her sandy blonde curly hair, if you remember. And that was, I just remember seeing you all those times. You were the fixture between Miski's and then Central Continental long before I moved into the block.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. Do we have anything else? Oh, how about the invention of television? What did you do? There's a good question to ask. What did you do before we had the invention of television?
Radio.
Would everybody sit around
Yeah.
and listen?
Sit around and listen to the radio.
That was a great time.
Yeah.
There's a radio station now on Sirius. It's 148.
Yeah.
It's Radio Classics, and it has all the old
Yeah.
radio shows.
Yeah.
So that's fun to listen to, and you really have to use your mind. And I think that's where we've lost it with the television.
Yeah.
Our minds don't work like they used to. Remember, you
Yeah.
had to remember who was the voices
Yeah.
and what they did.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to use your imagination.
Yeah. Reading. I know we at the Historical Society, we have the music room, that front living room. They've got the piano and, other instruments.
Yeah.
Did you play an instrument at all by any chance?
No.
Piano?
No.
So besides the listening to the radio and reading, what would you do as a family at night?
Play games.
Okay.
Board games.
Okay.
Checkers, Monopoly, card games.
What's your favorite card game?
Well, we used to play a lot of pinochle and rummy and royal rummy.
Okay.
Games. You had to make up your own games.
You had a great imagination too.
Yeah,
You might not have had clothes for the doll, so you made clothes out of did you crochet or knit?
No.
Okay. Because when I was little, that's how my imagination, I would crochet clothes for my Barbie dolls. They weren't good, but you had to use your imagination.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else you want to talk to me about? Other things back in the day? We had the invention of the TV, or the bringing of the radio in to the family.
Well, you found yourself sometimes you kept yourself busy. You didn't get bored. Time went fast no matter what year it was.
Well, and as I'm sitting here thinking about, not having any entertainment at night, how late would you all stay up at night?
How long?
Yeah, would you, and I'm talking back when you were all kids and working on the farm, if it's harvest season, you weren't up very late, were you? Because you were all tired.
Yeah.
Because you all worked, right? On the farm.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much time for socializing and playing because you were tired.
You made time, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What do you think of the changes that have come to Mount Prospect?
I still like a small town and not such a fast living.
Yeah, well, and I think everybody these days can, I grew up in Mount Prospect myself, and it wasn't that small of a town when I was growing up, but it was smaller than it is now. And I'd have to agree with you. It was also a whole different time as well. We didn't have the cell phones. We weren't connected. I came from the time
remember the family line? You could pick up the phone and you'd be talking to somebody else and before you...
the party line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, on the telephone, what was your phone number back then? Did you have to dial 7 digits?
No, I think you talk to the person, to operator.
Okay, because I remember, some places only had the last 4, if everybody had like the 255 number, you didn't have to dial a 255. All you had to do was dial the 7-800 or the last 4 digits. But a party line, you just get on and say, I want to talk to Virginia next door.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot has changed.
Yeah.
You couldn't have any secrets on the phone, could you?
No.
Or else everybody would know. That's why they called it a party line, right?
Yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about today?
No.
I think we're pretty good. I think we've got a good handle on what it was like being Bernice Oehlerking growing up in Mount Prospect 101 years ago. Yeah. And let me just say that you being one of our neighbors has been the best thing that's happened to our block since I've moved in. It's been since COVID. We've had a great time with COVID that we've really come together as a block and met you, had your party, and had a wonderful time on our block. And I think a lot of people are seeing that these days. After being locked up for so long, they're appreciating all their neighbors and what Mount Prospect has to offer.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Anything else you want to say? Say goodbye to everybody? Say anything to your relatives? How many relatives do you still have living? Do you have a lot of relatives?
Well,
nieces and nephews?
I said all of our whole Oehlerking family, immediate family from my mother and dad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only one. Well, not the only one. I have 2 cousins that are left in the immediate family.
Okay. From next door?
Huh?
From next door?
No, those are. One is from. My dad had 8 brothers and sisters, and so one is from his. Well, one is from one brother's family, and one is. Another niece is from another cousin is from another brother. So they're both. I looked her up, their age, and they're both. One is 91 and 92.
Okay, so they're the kids.
They're the kids.
That's so. You weren't just a big family. Your father had a big family.
Yeah.
What kind of family did your mom have? Did she come from a large family as well?
No, she only had 2 brothers.
Okay, well,
yeah.
And that's still,
Like I said, when we went to GTKO, we left in the morning and made it an all-day affair and came home late at night.
Did you take Plank Road out there?
Huh?
Plank Road?
Plank
Road is a big road that goes out to that area.
It took you forever to get there.
I know.
mean, it seemed like it.
It did. Well, because the cars we
now
had...
Now you can get there in an hour if you want
exactly.
to take the expressways.
We didn't have expressways back then.
Yeah, I know.
We had roads, and you had construction, or you had traffic and congestion, and I know the old saying, a half-day road took you half a day to get there is not true, but it was a long time. It wasn't, you just ran to the store.
Yeah.
Same thing. You didn't just run to the store. It was a trek to go to the store.
Yeah.
Especially when you were young.
Yeah. So all of my mother's family, brothers and their families are gone. So it's the immediate family, like from my grandpa and grandma. So
Awesome. But there's still Oehlerkings out there.
yeah.
I know I see a couple on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I keep asking them, how are you related to Bernice? And when I see those names, and I know one of them is your niece. Bernice, thank you very much for coming in today and talking about your life. I've been wanting to do this for a long time,
Yeah.
especially because you were born, bred here, and have never left Mount Prospect. When I say, I was, shy of being born and bred here. I was bred here. We don't leave, do we? And we like Mount Prospect.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to live.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming in today. We greatly appreciate hearing your history, and we hope to hear more from you over the coming couple of years.
Yeah.
Thank you.